My name is Patrick Way. This is my presentation on 4.3 data patterns. This presentation will be on United Airlines. This is kind of a dashboard overview of United Airlines financial data paired with some of their, stock information by quarter. This presentation hopes to use these 6 steps to help determine the value of this company's data. These steps include determining the value of the business, determining the value of the customer's data, determining the value of the company without data, determining the cost of replacing that business data, determining potentially the cost of the time that it would cost for to replace that, like the time to replace that, and then lastly, the money lost with with the lack of employee efficiency or lack of employee being able to work. So we'll begin to kind of highlight again. So gross profit compared to total revenue, operating expenses, and net income. So deriving the business value. You can see that you would want a more profitable business. In 2019, unfortunately, the COVID-19 virus happened, and that kind of shifted revenue trends for the entire airline market. And then United Airlines being one of those shifts down. And in 2020, they were able to divert operating expenses from the existing trend that it was on. By cutting operating expenses as much as possible, by basically putting in a plan and adopting lean operations where they could. Outside of that, the other items seem to follow a similar trend between each other. Comparison of inventory, deferred revenue, cash equivalents. Cash equivalents are higher in 2020 because in order to give themselves a little more bandwidth and wiggle room, while cutting operating expenses, United Airlines also took out loans to help provide a little bit of extra subsidy. Gross profit and then gross profit percent fall into like same trends and kind of flow. So then we come in, total revenue and gross profit seem to be on a high rise. They seem to converge where we have a low on our operating expense. But then they both, or all three, seem to have a correlation between their rises afterwards. They both have that steep kind of trend up and then get caught with a more gradual plane to follow. Some highs and lows over the last quarter by average, and then by volume. The volume seems to drop and the trend seems to follow, or the, valuation does not seem to follow. So as it seems to drop, there is a peak and then a divot and a rise. So it seems to be more correlating to what's going on in the operation than necessarily what's going on versus volume to flow. So the company itself is worth about 64 million, or 64 billion, excuse me, with 52.6 being in their total assets and then 11.5 billion being in their total equities. This data is from 2019. So there was rated at 96,000 employees in 2020. Part of the cost savings mechanisms was cutting 36,000 employees. So they're closer to a 60,000 employee right now, or employee count right now. So operating costs in 2020 were, $21 billion. So cutting that down by 365, we can see that it costs theoretical almost $60 billion a day, or or almost $60 million of expensive, almost $60 million a day, or 2 million or almost $2.5 million an hour to run operations. So if at any point in time, the data or anything is not available and we're not able to move operations, we're looking at almost $2.5 million an hour that the organization could lose. And then with that, you're also, losing, customers, was it trust? And it, begins to devalue the brand even further. And then here's kind of a visualization to show operating expenses in comparison to gross profit. And also kind of like a showcase of like where the closed value also is. You can see like when gross profit is high, or higher points, we seem to have the rises. And then when we have the divots on the gross profit in comparison to the prior value, there also be, is a divot in the close. And then same with operating expenses. So we have two major points here. In 2019, what is it? The 2019 was reported in Wuhan, and then in 2020, what is United Airlines deploys their cost-saving mechanisms in order to hopefully combat the loss in revenue seen due to the COVID-19 virus. And you can actually see these points happen within the stock value. So you can see where the COVID started to really hit revenue, people decided to sell their stocks and transition into different investments. And then as, they started to transition themselves into a more positive light, into a more sustainable model, investments began to pick back up. Social media is a really amazing tool and opportunity to pull and extract data that you might not necessarily think is present or available, but people are just making available via postings. When reviewing different journals and different outlets focus on COVID-19 and different stressors going on right now on the internet, there seems to be a heavy focus within users on travel restrictions and bans, like having to wear masks or having to have COVID test variations like that. Personal concerns in general, just afraid to get sick or afraid of potentially harming loved ones because of becoming maybe asymptomatic, and then followed up with travel excitement of people being locked up and just looking to bounce out and enjoy their travel and their different excursions. Second part of this presentation is to perform a SWOT analysis on United Airlines, excuse me. Let's see here. So their strengths are, they've got a strong rewards program. This utilizes their customer data in a great regard, and takes advantage of what they have, and also lets the customer know that they're known, present, and the company is actively working towards a better solution for them. They have a great physical asset supply. They have a large fleet of planes and are actively working to expand on it. They have a great market share. They're within the top 5 domestic providers, and they have a great customer experience. Customers rave them for having limited delays. They hardly lose their baggages, and then when there are issues, customer service is quick and kind. The weakness, their cost. They're in a more expensive service. Their in-flight entertainment is weak in comparison to competitors, and their international market is not as strong as it could be. Opportunities are domestic tourism with the pandemic virus still going on, the pandemic still going on. International travel is often complicated with different bans and restrictions being in place. So there's an opportunity to expand on domestic tourism that falls up into the service growth, utilizing potential assets that may be used in cross-continental flights can now be used for one-way flights due to their ability to, go longer distances on tanks. So expanding on services that they find that they can do would be a great opportunity. Followed up with utilizing any opportunity within the pandemic to find new controls to make sure that they're able to basically bounce out of this situation. While also, again, like using this opportunity to find like new situations and stuff like that to make money. Followed up with, while everything's down and you're not able to necessarily do anything, maybe use this time to expand to different hubs. I know that United Airlines has already began on this in some capacity with reaching out and expanding with an Australian hub for future projects. Threats are, excuse me, threats are an environmental concern. So planes are considered to be a big contributor to the climate change scenario. So that's something to definitely be conscious of. I know United Airlines is in some capacities working towards this. We're working towards zero emission planes. Security, 9/11 hit the airline industry pretty heavily. So ensuring that planes and environments are safe so that nothing like that could ever happen can be a great opportunity to keep revenue consistent. United Airlines has been known or has been filmed forcefully removing passengers. So there's a bit of controversy going on right now with the organization, and that will need to be worked on or PR'd out. And then customer health uncertainty. The pandemic is still present, and implementing and working on controls to keep people safe will be prudent in this time. Here's a list of the references that I utilized to generate this presentation. Thank you. Have a great day.